everyone, and welcome into the Rochester Press Box. I'm Bill Pucko. I have to be joined this week by Carl Falk and for Tariq Spence. Carl, what kind of week you had?
Well, they didn't fire me after the last one for filling in for Tariq, so I guess that's a good thing. I'm back. It must have been okay.
All right,
Joe didn't get my email, apparently. Sorry.
Silver linings.
No worries. Thank God for glitches.
Ooh, I like this jersey. This says Wyoming on the top. I can guess where that's going.
Yeah, we're talking Josh Allen Poinsettia Bowl jersey from Wyoming. Is it Poinsettia or Poinsettia? Because I said Poinsettia and somebody correct me. And then I said Poinsettia and somebody said, no, it's Poinsettia. So I don't even know.
It's spelled Settia. It's pronounced Setta. So you were right.
Thank you.
For once. Carl, it's a great year for basketball in Rochester. The high schools notwithstanding, we haven't seen, a lot of high school basketball or any of that stuff. But Anthony Lamb and Isaiah Stewart made it in the NBA. And Stewart certainly made a mark as a high draft pick. That it's basketball coming out of Rochester that's really pretty amazing to have this happen in 1 year, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic, and it shows the great coaching and the amount of work that the young players from this area have done. It's great to see kids that we go to McQuaid and watch Isaiah Stewart or go to Greece Athena and watch Anthony Lamb, and here now 4 years later, you turn on the TV and they're playing against LeBron James or playing against another superstar in the league. I think it's just fantastic. And let's not forget, he's kind of the dean of Rochester NBA players now. Thomas Bryant, who had signed a big contract with the Wizards, he ended up tearing up his knee, so he missed the bulk of the year. But for Rochester, New York, to have three kids from this town playing in the NBA, I think it's phenomenal. I really do.
Pat, it used to be the hockey players that made all the mark locally, the guys that made it. And, basketball now can stand even with them, don't you think?
100%. And I mean, going back to the hockey player thing, right? I mean, it takes the talent and the hard work. And I mean, Carl, you more than anybody being around that sport, high school sports here, you see the hard work that goes in, but it also comes into fitting into a good situation. You look at a guy like Ryan Callahan, a guy like Brian Giants, a guy like Stevie Giants, a guy like Rory Fitzpatrick. The hard work worked great. Finding the right situation worked great. And I think Isaiah Stewart is the perfect example of finding a great situation. When John Wallace gets drafted to the New York Knicks, he gets drafted to a team that's picking in the high teens. It's harder for a guy of that age to earn playing time on the floor, where Isaiah Stewart goes to a team that desperately needs help where he is there, and that benefits him in a huge way, right? Like, there's eyes on him throughout the league every night. He was top 5 rookie of the year consideration for a big point of the league, and when he got his opportunity, he took advantage of it. Sometimes it's as simple as having the opportunity, and same with Anthony Lamb. He gets his opportunity, he takes advantage of it. Good for those guys, man.
To that point, Pat, the Rockets were a terrible team. So they bring Anthony Lamb up from the G League. He goes out and shows that he can play with the big boys. And whether or not he stays in Houston or ends up elsewhere, he's now shown the rest of the league he's somebody that's going to be on all of their radars. Again, not a draft pick, but a kid who's going to be a worker bee, and a lot of teams would like to have him now.
So Stewart gets the nickname Beef Stew in Detroit, and they love him. The fans love him in Detroit. He's almost, he's as close to getting folk hero status as a first-year player can. Lamb is a different case. He caught a real break, and thank you, James Harden, for demanding to be traded out of there, creating an historically bad Houston Rockets team that Lamb gets a chance to play for. In your knowledgeable eye for basketball players, has Lamb proven enough to indicate to anyone that he's good enough to stay in the NBA? Yeah,
I think he has, and it's funny. I saw Anthony Lamb play a ton in high school, and my only thought with Anthony Lamb was if he was 2 or 3 inches taller, he would be a high first-round pick. There was nothing that kid couldn't do at Greece Athena. Was overlooked by the Syracuse and the big schools around here. Didn't really recruit him. Goes to Vermont, player of the year a couple times in that conference. And same thing happened to him in the G League. He started out with an organization that didn't give much of a shot. Gets traded in the G League, all of a sudden starts putting up numbers. You mentioned the Harden trade. They call him up. He puts up numbers there. So I think he's a guy who's proven that he's going to continue to get better. And teams are always looking for a guy like that, whether it be at the end of the bench or somebody who's a contributor who's going to make their team better. And I think that's what Anthony Lamb has done at every stop along the way.
I would love to see that, especially because, Lamb put in a full career at a public school, which is, it kind of puts him in a class by himself along with John Wallace. I mean, guys who are really special. This is the Rochester Press Box, and we're talking Buffalo Bills next.
These are two guys, both from Rochester, both left home, both are on the verge of not just going to their sports, but going big time to their sports. One is Thomas Bryant, basketball player, Bishop Kearney, left to go down to West Virginia, went to Indiana, going back for his senior year. This young guy is likely to be a lottery pick in a year. He has improved his game tremendously. Watched him work out the other day. He's got the size, he's got the work ethic. I think he's got that opportunity to be our first NBA guy since John Wallace.
Original Bay Goodman Pizza, located on the corner of North Winton at Browncroft. There are 3 ways to get the original Bay & Goodman delivery. Go to baygoodman.com.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. Smiles all around. I like that. Pat, Buffalo Bills. Brandon Beane got himself in a little bit of hot water with the league by suggesting that he would use a vaccine, whether or not a player had taken the vaccine for COVID, is what may be possibly a tiebreaker in terms of who you keep and who you don't. Probably shouldn't have said it. Is it okay for him to think it?
I mean, I was surprised by it for the simple reason that the NFL does not go after controversy in any way. And in today's social climate, you don't get a more controversial statement than that. I mean, look, I understand the logic behind it. The NFL has rules that if everyone in your team is vaccinated, everyone in your program, then you can all get together and meet in person. But then, on the other hand, after Beane makes those comments, the NFL comes in and shuts him down and tells him, don't say that. So, I mean, look, if you're going to make the rule that is encouraging the teams to get vaccinated, and you're going to tell these teams, well, this is what we're looking for. And then the guy comes out and says, well, because of the rules, this is what I'd be willing to do as a tiebreaker. The NFL doesn't have the right to come in. Well, they do. They shouldn't come in and be like, how dare you say that? That being said, I mean, I wouldn't have said it. But can he think it? Of course. It's an advantage to the team. If he's not thinking it, I'm a little bit worried.
I mean, is it any different really than a player being chronically injured? I mean, if you're looking at a guy, it says, he's got a history of knee problems. This guy didn't get a vaccine. Who's more dependable? Look at one guy's going to get sick. The other guy's going to get hurt. Can't you make that judgment?
I mean, if you have a history, I mean, again, I think I get where you're going with that argument, but the folks that aren't going to get the vaccine would make the argument, well, no, that's not the case because I wasn't sick and I don't see anything. It's my body to make that decision. I don't know. I mean, look, the whole thing is complicated, which again, in a soundbite is why you don't say what he said without being able to explain yourself fully. Hey, I'm glad I'm not Brandon Beane today. I'll say that.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's so many facets to this. The HIPAA laws that apply to this and to all health issues. Brandon Beane said something that I think makes sense. And Bill, to your point, logically, it makes sense. But I think the league is more worried about, well, go figure. The league is more worried about their public image than anything else. And they looked at what he said as a possible strike against the Shield. And God forbid you say something that could be taken a different way against the Shield. So the league is going to react the way they're going to because they're going to protect the Shield at all costs. Here's the other part. Josh Allen's not going to get cut because he didn't take the vaccine. Now, if you're the 54th man on the roster or the 53rd man on the roster, maybe. But it's not like he's looking to cut good players who are unvaccinated. It's just a tiebreaker, as you mentioned, for probably the last guy on the roster.
But to that point, it's bizarre that he would even make that statement. I mean, look, if you follow what's going on Bill's Twitter the last month, it's become pretty obvious that some of their prominent players aren't going to get the shot, right? So if it's not even a factor that's going to factor in where it's one person that's on the bubble that's going to get cut, I still don't know why you say it out loud. But then again, we also get angry when these general managers and coaches and players aren't honest with us. He is out completely honest, says what's on his mind, and he's getting lit up for it. So who knows?
Yeah, and the bottom line, I hope that this doesn't change the way Brandon Beane does business and still gives us things like this to talk about. It's kind of refreshing, actually. This is the Rochester Press Box, Liked or Not, is next. Here's the Press Box Trivia question, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
All of these things show Josh Allen has a strive for greatness inside of him.
Falkin Around with Carl Falk. New episodes every Tuesday on Rock Sports Now.
Here's the Press Box Trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Are you facing criminal charges from a DWI and feel that you never imagined it could happen to you? Contact attorneys with years of experience as prosecutors and defenders. Contact Ganguly Brothers Law today for a free consultation. You can put your trust in us.
Welcome back, and thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. This portion of the Press Box, like it or not, brought to you by Ganguly Brothers Law. With years of experience defending the accused, don't go unprepared. Contact Ganguly Law today. Like it or not, Carl, I'll go to you. The idea that sports teams, businesses in general, just spinning off the discussion we just had with the Buffalo Bills, ought to have the right to require vaccinated people and only vaccinated people into their business, stadium, whatever.
This is so complicated, and so many businesses are trying to figure out what they can do, what they can't do, what they should do. Is it a violation of the HIPAA laws to ask somebody, do you have a vaccine card? I need to see your vaccine. Is that even legal to ask? And I know many businesses right now, because of the mask situation, are to the point where if you're vaccinated, you don't need to wear a mask. But should you have to prove that? Or should you even have to answer that question? Is that a violation? The government's trying to figure this out just like the rest of us, but unfortunately, the public has to abide by what the government says. Unfortunately, the government hasn't given the public enough guidelines to clearly state what the public, meaning businesses, can and can't do, just what is required of them. So it needs, I think, more time to breathe, if you will, and allow for some of these really close to HIPAA law violations to be cleared out, and allow for the businesses to legally, properly run their business.
Yeah, I kind of bring that up in a sports sense only because it affects the Rochester Red Wings, and then, like, if they're reserving space for non-vaccinated people, it's costing them money, and they're coming off a year where they didn't even play.
Yeah, and again, they're like any other. The Red Wings, it seems different, but they're no different than your local restaurant or your local store, where they have to abide by New York State guidelines. And frankly, the state and the federal government haven't been clear enough, in my opinion, to help businesses safely navigate the changes in the COVID protocols as we go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, then here's what I'm going to do. Pat, like it or not, Kenny Mayne is retired from ESPN.
I don't like that he's retiring. I love Kenny Mayne. I've always loved Kenny Mayne. Like, he's such a breath of fresh air compared to the rest of the guys. Even in that era of SportsCenter, where you started to see that change between, stuffed shirt, straightforward sports journalism into something that, look, Kenny Mayne never took himself too seriously. And the fact that Kenny Mayne is leaving is proof that sports journalism is changing once again, because the golden age of sports journalism, of course, it's when I was coming of age, because that's when everything was perfect, was you saw these guys, these men and women that love sports, but they knew it was just sports, right? Kenny Mayne embodied that idea, whereas now everybody's got a take. Everybody's going to try and dunk on you. If you even question anybody on anything about what they think sports-wise, it's like you slapped them across the face. Like, it's the end of let's have a beer and laugh about sports takes instead of I'm going to find out where you live and come and punch you in the face.
I said he was retiring. He was let go. Just like,
yes.
In a word or two, like, what was his strength? Like, why do people love Kenny Mayne?
Because it was effortless for him, right? Like he was able to have this abstract comedy while you still knew watching him, he was the smartest guy in the room when it came to sports. And that is a very, very hard talent. As someone who's kind of funny and kind of knows something about sports, I always wish I could have been Kenny Mayne.
We always said about you when people ask, what do you have him on for? It says, he's got just enough knowledge to be dangerous. We're on the Rochester Press Box. This portion brought to you by Ganguly Brothers Law. Unfinished Business is next.
The Press Box Stat of the Week is being brought to you by McArdle's Restaurant in Fairport. McArdle's is open 7 days a week with dining available indoors and out, takeout and delivery. Come home to McArdle's.
And now to Eichel. He floated one.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. Time for Unfinished Business. Pat, start us off.
Could there be a changing of the guard in Western New York? Because, the Toronto Blue Jays playing in the Buffalo Bison Stadium up there. We used to be Pilot Field. Was it Salem Stadium now in Buffalo? And tickets went on sale last week to go watch a major league team play in a minor league ballpark. What an experience, right? We're never going to get this again. So tickets went on sale. The Astros game in May went on sale, and the Yankees game in May went on sale. And the Astros game sold out before the Yankees game did, which is bizarre because Western New York for the longest time was a Yankees team kind of area. And now I know there aren't a lot of Houston Astros fans in Western New York. Hell, there aren't a lot of Houston Astros fans left anywhere in the country. And it says to me, these folks didn't care who they were seeing when the Blue Jays came to town because all of a sudden, this is a Blue Jays area. I mean, not all over the place. It's not totally. There's probably more Yankees fans than there are anybody else. But I think the Blue Jays imprint being in Western New York over the last 2 years has started to convert some people. And they're excited. And now, maybe have changed their allegiance to the dark, dark team that plays downstate.
A couple of years ago, O'Shea Brissett decided he was going to test the waters for the NBA draft, and he left Syracuse University after his sophomore season. And what you heard from a lot of the fans and even members of the media is, he's not ready. He can't play. He should stay. Well, O'Shea gets drafted in the second round by the Raptors, and they let him go, and this year he hooks on with the Indiana Pacers. He recently signed a 3-year deal that guarantees him almost $3 million. And O'Shea was the leading scorer in a couple of their playoff games going forward this year, averaged double figures in the games he played. He's made a really nice impact on his new team. Not ready. Not ready for what? Life-changing money and opportunity? Isn't that why we go to college in the first place? Find a business major who's really good at his craft at Syracuse, and he gets offered a job on Wall Street. Is anybody going to say he's not ready? It's the selfish fans and media who keep putting these kids down and don't allow them to enjoy their dream coming true. It shouldn't happen, but it continues to happen.
Until last week, I didn't know who Joe Valerio was. He was like a lot of people who work behind the scenes to produce television programs. He was invisible. His calling card was The Sports Reporters, panel discussion show on ESPN, a groundbreaking production that brought serious discussion to real sports issues. The Sports Reporters had a 29-year run that ended in 2017. It was largely replaced by shows featuring so-called expert commentators whose primary skill was shouting over each other. It was what we wanted, or so we were told. For 4 years, Sports Reporters overlapped the Rochester Press Box. Producer Joe Bratt and I wanted a program modeled after the Sports Reporters, tapping into the vast amount of local talent that we had right here in Rochester. And Channel 13 bought into the idea. The Rochester Press Box has been a showcase for the great sports writers at the DNC, along with the likes of Jim Kelly, Abby Wambach, Roosevelt Bowie, Rich Funky, Mike Catalano, John DiTullio, Dan Fates, Doug Miller, Bob Blyer, and Greg Cagle, and countless others. Not to be interviewed, but to contribute to the narrative. We've been on the air for 9 years with this show. This is our 393rd episode, thanks in part to the vision of Joe Valerio at ESPN. That is Unfinished Business, and that is our program. I neglected to say that, you two guys have been great contributors over the year to the show, and we appreciate it.
Too late now,
Countless
man.
others.
Whatever.
We are countless others, Pat. countless others. That's us.
By the way, I love 393 shows. We've done like 5 good ones. Thanks, Bill. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
4.
We're getting better. We're getting better. What was it?
Yeah, they say,
Tony Kornheiser says we'll try to do better next time. That applies here. Hey, thank you guys. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week for the Rochester Press Box.